I work with ThoughtWorks as a continuous delivery consultant. Today, I would be covering the topic of why the phrase CI/CD is not enough. Practically speaking, what are the gaps and remedies in making continuous delivery happen? The agenda would be we'll cover the general state of progress. We'll see the open issues in the market despite adopting, CI/CD, which I deliberately double quote this way. We look at what we've identified as the gaps in understanding. What does it take to make continuous integration happen, and what the journey to continuous delivery looks like, and what is it that you can do? The general state of progress, we've had the CDCon and everyone's happy. We are talking about deploying to Kubernetes. There's microservices. People are starting to take logging, monitoring, and alerting very seriously, right? We are starting to look at an API first approach for creating tools, for evaluating and purchasing tools. And of course, there's a lot of movement of decomposing monoliths into microservices. There are a lot of good things like this happening, right? Despite all of this, despite adopting the so-called CI/CD, after setting up all the right continuous integration, there are still issues like this. Security verifications still take time. There are still configuration errors despite continuous deployment. Users are still unable to actually deploy on demand or even regularly, right? And people still report that there are defects in production. Let's see why does this happen. Here are some actual conversations that I have with clients and prospects. This is not to put down any client. This is actually a reality that our clients face. They come, they get in all the right consultants. They have made all the right investments, set up all the right practices, they feel. And then they come and tell us, all right, I've set up all of these things. And now, can you help get me to the so-called next level? So these are actual questions. These are situations where clients have invested sometimes even a few millions of dollars in agile courses, Scrum certification, and a continuous integration setup and automated deployment. They do all of those things. They say they have their CI and their CD, right? And yet they come to us with all these sorts of phrases, right? And they're just actually surprised when at some of the things that we suggest to them. Right, and then we have a totally different class of customers and people I meet in the world. People who say, "Hey, all of this sounds good, but it's not for us." Why? Because of a lot of the marketing messages or whatever impressions that they have, they believe that a lot of benefits are not for them. They would rather just continue to suffer because in their minds they believe they are not ready for a lot of these things yet, right? Or they believe that, hey, maybe I've outsourced a lot of my worry to someone else, and whatever is left is how life is going to be. Now, here are some difficult questions that I ask people, right? And I do go to clients and I say, look, we can make continuous delivery happen for you. And I give them my usual pitch. I tell them some of the benefits. There have been conversations where I've been interrupted and people have told me, let me give you a showcase of what we've already finished paying for and we already have it. And I look at it, sure, they've got all the right looking automation, and I start these questions, right? Over a period of years, I've learned to ask these sorts of 10 questions, starting with, do you have defects in production, right? And then I go on to ask a lot of other things that, how good is, I help them think about how good is their test suite. I help them understand how good is, their test suite to help them triage issues. They start to wonder about, as part of our discussions, they start to wonder about if they have made a code commit, do they know, has it actually fixed the defect? And second, has it undone some functionality from the past? Or worse, some bug that was fixed in the past has that reappeared, right? Because many people do not understand the word regression. They don't understand that this is what it means to regress in functionality. And then, there are those who say, hey, I've got automated deployment, right? I've got continuous deployment place, automated deployment, to which my question is, good. Does your deployment always go through without a hitch? And as part of your deployment, are you also taking care of configuration? Right? So when I ask these sorts of questions, and I would request you, the audience, to kindly take note, these are very interesting questions to ask. These are the questions to ask yourself about how good is your, has your initiative been, right? So what's actually going on over here? How is it that despite people, putting in various amounts of money and dedicating sincere time and effort, how is it that they're still facing issues, right? Now, one thing I think is the term CI/CD itself, right? There's nothing wrong with continuous integration. There's nothing wrong with continuous delivery itself. But the problem is with how, it has been contracted and things are lumped together, and then that D is mixed up between deployment and delivery, and sometimes even continuous DevOps, God knows what not, right? So here's an actual screenshot of a conversation with Jez Humble, the author of the Continuous Delivery book, an ex-colleague of mine, and Tom Sulson, who asked him this question, a colleague of mine right now, right? And you can see his disappointment, and this has been acknowledged by many people, including the CD Foundation, that there is a problem with using the phrase CI/CD. Why exactly is it a problem, and what are we going to do about it? Let's see, right? Here are some possible causes for misunderstanding CI/CD. So I would say it's a bunch of these, and this is what I have seen in my travels and in my conversations with clients, that this is what happens. People start mixing up, various terms together, and unfortunately, misinterpretations and misunderstandings, they get in the way of, actually manifesting a benefit and, really making good use of it, right? So that's a bit sad, isn't it? Now, let's just think about it a bit, right? Let us think about it a bit. There is Martin Fowler's favorite, famous article on continuous integration. There are books on the topic. There are many other things, and all tooling vendors also will happily tell you about continuous integration. Just thinking about it a bit. Continuous integration is when developers integrate code with each other, yeah, frequently, and that too after clearing certain gatekeeping checks. It does not, continuous integration does not imply that you therefore have to do an automated deployment to a production environment. Not yet. CD, for those who call it continuous deployment, well, actually what they actually mean is they have gone and funded an automated deployment initiative. But just because you have because you have automated deployment does not automatically therefore necessitate or imply or require that, hey, we funded in automated deployment initiatives and it has worked, and therefore the moment we get a build, we just have to go live. There's no choice because we want to be part of the buzz in the market by saying CI/CD. No, 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 no. There's a problem over here. Just because you are able to deploy does not necessarily mean your build should be deployed, or that it's in a deployable state. And very often, and we sometimes work in client places where there are objections, where security teams and other governance people stand up and tell us, we will not be allowing the CI/CD of you people because these builds have to be certified. And because they are not, or the tech stack doesn't allow it or whatever, we're going to disallow everything. And then there are devs who stand up and say, no, 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 no. We need to go live all the time, right? So there is always this unfortunate tension, and which need not be there, right? So that is why I have to sit and explain, get everyone into the same level of understanding. Often it's a lot of this is social work. We have to help people understand that ideally what it means is every commit, we should be able to consider it as a release candidate. Practically speaking, you will all not get there very immediately. So we should work towards making sure that our code is in a deployable and functionally correct state. And environment owners should be able to deploy on demand or upon readiness. So this is where an environment owner can say, all right, I see that this build is good. I see that it has been tested and various people's gatekeeping checks have certified it. Let us review it together. Looks good. Let's click a button and go live. In a different threat model, in a different domain, someone might say, hey, we trust our test suite enough that let's just automate it. That's where that continuous automated deployment is valid, right? That's these are your famous cases of Netflix and this and that and what have you, where people believe that, oh, if Netflix can do it and they're betting and making billions on it, why can't we? Well, you should be able to only after you have provided the right kind of gatekeeping checks. So what is it that high performers do? We will look at it. How do they fare, right? The screenshot on the left is from the State of DevOps report of 2016. Please have a look at it. I would urge that you locate and download it. And it's a wonderful document. The DORA metrics has come out of it, and many people have lived off this. So have a look at that column, please. The high IT performers, right? The high IT performers, These are the four metrics that they are ranked on. Deployment frequency, that is how frequently are you able to deploy. What is the lead time for change, that is new feature fixes to existing feature or tweak or some such. What is the mean time to recover, that is from the time that any sort of an incident occurs, how quickly can you come back. Sometimes this is not just a bug fix, it might be nothing to do with bug fixes, it would involve a lot of infrastructure and environment automation and also configuration, right? And then of course the interesting thing, change failure rate. This is where a lot of people stumble, right? Sure, you made in that commit and you got all the right executive clearances, and you from commit to deploy you made it under an hour. But do you know that that change that you push into production, has it caused a regression or has it caused some damage, right? High performers, they have these kind of ratings. Some of the best, they work at 0% of change failure rates. What is it that high performers do? The agility is not just in ceremony, it is actually in delivery, right? And the things on the right are the things that they do. Yeah, they are in a position, they make sure that they are able to push changes with a higher degree of confidence. They have the confidence to change scope when they discover something in production or from user feedback. They have the confidence to change scope. Yeah. What are the practices that a lot of us follow? Those of us who are able to regularly get into that high performance grade, these are the general spread of practices that we follow. Actually, honestly, there's a lot more, but at the very minimum, we should be able to have these. Now, the CI/CD initiatives, they unfortunately focus only in the top right two: continuous integration and automated deployments. People end up underestimating the importance of environments of demand, of service virtualization, and logging and monitoring. People also completely forget often, that there's a lot of automated testing, and you have to involve various stakeholders like QA and security. People just forget things like this, right? Now, what then should be the goal of continuous integration? This is my attempt, and this is what I go and share with clients. Essentially, I say, let us at least start with these four things on the side. Let's make sure that your code is actually there in continuous in a source code server. For many of our clients, it's actually that's not even there, right? They just take a bundle from someone, from their vendors. They compile it, package it, and they just push it out, and they say, oh wow, we've got it. But what we have to point out to these customers is, not yet. Kindly take ownership of the code as well, right? So we tell customers to take ownership of the code, take ownership of the ability to generate deployable artifacts. Don't just depend on your vendor to do it, right? You should be able to do it yourself also. If nothing, it should happen on infrastructure that you own. Yeah. The deployment and configuration of the full IT stack. This is also, it depends. There are places where they put out a tender, or they give out specialized jobs to specialists saying, come set up my environment on Amazon, and then they declare that they are on the cloud. But what if something needs to be changed? Then they scramble to vendors again, right? You as an organization should have the full control and the ability to deploy and redeploy an environment. Yeah. And what does it mean to have the verification of deployable artifacts? That's where tests come in. We'll look at that now. So this is what actually happens in a continuous integration setup. There's a lot of topic about branches and a lot of it. I would encourage everyone to start looking at trunk-based development. It's a bit of a journey. It is not what you start with. It is something that you arrive at. And what really should happen is, you should have the confidence to merge very frequently from your various branches into the master branch very frequently throughout the day. If you can do that, and that confidence comes from tests, if you can do that, you realize at a point of time that you don't really need too many branches. You can just start committing to trunk, because the CI is going to run tests for you. What would these tests be? These would be tests something along these lines, right? So this is a pipeline, by the way. This is a very abstract representation of a pipeline, but this is what it means partly what it means to have a pipeline. You should have faster to slower running tests, but the good bit is, you will have an increasing amount of confidence, right? From left to right, from code quality tests all the way to security and other functional tests and whatnot. So the objective is to be able to have fast feedback. Fail fast, learn fast. The sooner you learn in the pipeline that, hey, something failed, some requirement we have undone, the better. Then once you understand the testing, what does it mean to actually get to continuous delivery? This is what this talk is actually about. That once you've sorted out your continuous integration, where your people are able to integrate, it is now important that to reduce all those other problems that people have, right? Why is it that it works on a dev machine and not in prod? Why is it that despite having all the automation, we still have defects in prod? You then, after having continuous integration and the right kind of testing, you now come into these 5 areas: having uniform environments, consistent deployments and configuration, the automated verification of the builds, and also ensuring that you have the fastest path to production. Please take note, fastest path does not necessarily mean zero manual intervention. It depends upon your business, depends upon the threat model. Manual gates are sometimes necessary. For example, where a system owner needs to be able to see, hey, what have my developers created? And what is it that I am allowing into the environment, right? So manual gates sometimes are necessary. It's just that they don't have to be once in a month or once in a quarter or something. You can happily do them 5 times a day. Why would you then do it 5 times a day? Because when you keep deploying very much smaller batch sizes, the amount of change that you have to review is very, very small. This is very important, trying to make sure that the batch sizes are small. Yeah. So what then is an environment? When we say that you should have uniform environments, this is interesting, and this is something that I have to explain sometimes to clients because they are not everyone is automation savvy, right? So this is something I have to explain to clients that, hey, don't worry. With the right kind of infrastructure as code approach, you will realize that your environment is actually backed by scripts. It's backed by logging and monitoring being outside the system. There are third-party systems which you can't pay for and host. You can replicate them using a virtualized service. And of course, the entire database, you can back up and recreate via scripts also. So that means you should be in a position to, using scripts, come up with an environment on demand, put it to use, and then decommission it. So don't get locked in and don't get tied up to an environment. Go ahead and validate that those scripts repeatedly and regularly can recreate the environment for you. So this, once you have approaches like this, you will be able to spin up more environments and shut them down when you don't need them. Yeah, that doesn't have to be a single point of failure or contention anymore. This is what it would actually lead you to. You would be able to take the same infrastructure as code scripts, and with injecting the right kind of environment specific configuration and data, you should be able to stand up environments on demand, preferably in a self-service manner. Now, once you understand that, what then happens what then does it take to make continuous delivery happen? Let's look at the 4 key metrics on the right hand side. These are the DORA metrics, right? But these are from that same state of DevOps report. Plus, if you look at the DORA metrics, please look it up. Jez and the others have done a good job around it. So here are the actions from left to right which lead to it. This is actually a slide that I put together to help a client understand that what does it mean for them to get us in for infrastructure as code, and where are we required to draw the line, because their devs have to write the tests. So we have to create something like this to help them understand that for that continuous integration to happen, sure, we can stand up the source code and the CI platform and all of it. Sure, we can use Amazon's API and VMware API and set up on-prem and cloud infrastructure. Sure, we can write automated build and deployment and configuration, but someone has to write the tests. Because it's only when the tests are written that they would be in a position to have certified builds. This was the big interesting aha moment for them. They had not quite realized that the certified builds are what are important. And when you get certified builds, only from tests. Where the tests come from? They are run as part of the CI continuous integration process, which is facilitated by the continuous integration platform, which uses inputs from the code server. But the code server has to have source code tests, build scripts, and deployment scripts. So this is a diagram I put together for them, and we were able to work out with various departments and various project teams. What are the conversations that we should have? What are the lead times that are going to come up? And what are the kind of responsibilities people would have to take up? For example, please look at this interesting thing here, logging, monitoring, and alerting. That's something that we have to tell people that DevOps is, is not just a buzzword. If you say that, development and operations coming together, we need to help you devs understand what are the things that usually go wrong in prod, and in what way can you support it. So that's where devs understood that, a log messages should be more meaningful. Let them not log, info level stuff and only log exceptions. How could they start working with ops to understand what kind of metrics to expose and surface those? So when people start to see things like this, right, they realize that, all right, this is a journey. This is not just a contract given out to spin up a few environments and, declare that CI/CD for this year has been achieved. We will pick up DevOps next year and Agile the year after that. Yeah, or maybe you just wait and say, oh, GitOps is the new buzz. Let me go for it. So instead of all of that, people, it takes them time, and often it takes them, some harsh lessons in life, having wasted money in initiatives declaring CI/CD. It takes them all of that pain to realize that indeed there is, all of this is needed. And every client I have met, they end up having their own war stories around each of these blocks. Yeah. So this is when I then talk to them about pipelines also. This is what a real world pipeline graph looks like. It's not just those toy things that, you will see in any vendor's presentation or whatever. There's a lot of politics that happens, in multi-vendor setups where multiple vendors or teams have to work together, consume each other's components, and they all go to an environment, and then, it works in their own individual environments, but they're not able to work with each other. Why is that? That is because their interdependencies are not worked out very well, right? So this is what we teach clients, that please, pipelines are not just, you don't just buy the next best tool out there and, whatever, and then just go run it. They are going to have to be backed by a tool that is capable of actually modeling a pipeline. Second, you're going to have to back them by tests. For example, in this case, this is a scenario where component A and B, and they are separate components. And never mind, debates about mono repo or multi repo or whatever. Never mind that. What really matters is, beyond that, it does matter, but what matters more than that is, are we able to test the two together in this scenario where service one uses A and B and makes use of it? Are we able to test the two before we send that service along to a functional testing environment? Now imagine this scenario where service 2 makes a call on service 1, right? And the first opportunity to test that would be in the functional testing environment, isn't it? So this is where we tell people that, look, it doesn't have to be, that doesn't have to be the first time that you test. You should be in a position to take stubs delivered by service 1, test service 2 along with it, and only after the stub tests pass, please then promote your service 2 out there. Likewise, service 1 should also be having public API contract tests, saying, I know I'm doing all the fastest things right now, but these are the public API contracts that I've agreed to fulfill. If I break it, I don't want my build to go ahead, right? So this is what it actually means to shift left. So this is a diagram that my colleague Jean, she created for me when I described this to her, the whiteboard. So this is what it means for various services to work together. This is how shift left looks like in the continuous integration world. It is not important enough that you just buy a Jira or a Bamboo or a Jenkins or a Circle CI license and get done. You're going to have to model things this way so that you can truly shift left and discover issues sooner than later. Okay, that then gets us to the CD, right? Where I point out to clients and I say, kindly don't just call it continuous deployment. Wait, call it automated deployment and decide that do you want to deploy on demand or continuously with automation, right? Where if the test pass, then you just go live. So this is what I need to help them understand, the difference between automated deployment and continuous deployment, right? So it becomes a very big shock. I'll be putting out these slides and I'm sure the event organizers will make them available. But this is how I help them distinguish. And I say, kindly stop saying continuous deployment, call it automated deployment, and let's focus on continuous delivery, which is a whole lot of other things, right? So just so you know, just to recap, continuous delivery is ideally where every commit can confidently be considered a release candidate, and practically where the code is in a deployable and functionally correct state, and the environment owner decides how the deployment should happen. right? So in closing comments, once again, just to recap, please set the right expectations for yourself. Continuous delivery is more than just CI and automated deployment. It is the right kind of test, collaboration, pipeline composition, uh, uh, and many other such things. It does not mean that you cannot do CI. It does not mean you cannot do CD if you don't go to Kubernetes and microservices on the cloud. You can do this on completely monolith apps and environments. There's no such. It does not automatically mandate that you have to go to microservices. There's no such thing. What you have to focus on instead are uniform environments, consistent deployment, consistent configuration, and the right kind of build and tests. Yes? Okay. Thank you very much, folks. This has been a short talk. I'll be hanging around, and this is how you can reach me. Kindly do reach me. I'm working on a book called The Journey to Continuous Delivery, and I'm starting to release parts of it out over there for people. Bye for now. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the talk, and this is a topic that's very dear to my heart. And I help clients with this topic quite all the time. And day in and day out, I have to face these questions and help them achieve some reality checks. And that's how things go on for them. Yeah, and there's a lot of resetting of expectations and whatnot. And yeah, it can be a bit painful, but I think all in all, it's really worth it. Thank you, Steph. Thank you for the compliments. Yeah. Do ask any questions. I think there's still a few minutes left. I'm happy to respond in the Q&A tab. Or if you'd like to just stop, then we can talk to as well. Meanwhile, in the chat window, I also shared the link to my talk or to my slides on the segregation of duties. I actually went and became an auditor, to understand how security auditors and reviewers work. So that taught me a lot about the kind of how people agree upon the intent, but the implementation goes nuts, and you have very painful experiences. So I put together that set of slide decks, and I often give talks on the topic. So I've given them away at the website. I've given away the link to you. Please feel free to download and use it. Thank you. Let's see. Yeah, I've also set up a poll on, do you have defects in prod deployment despite having implemented CI/CD? So let's just see the results. No results yet. Computing the poll. How do you manage legacy security teams who stop CI/CD? Actually, that's what I was just saying, that I first talk to them and actually make everyone agree that you need to have controls. You need to have gatekeeping checks. The example I often give to people is, would you be fine if a dev did not steal money from your savings account directly, but when the interest is computed, they reduce a cent from what was owed to you and they took it away? You wouldn't like it, right? So you would demand that someone review the code. That's all that's required. Just for people to review the code, let people understand that the controls are in place, have the various gatekeepers recognize that their gatekeeping checks have been codified, and it's all baked into the system. So I make sure that I show people that. And that's the thing, Dipin. If you just look in the chat window, I've given the link to the slide deck on the segregation of duties and continuous delivery. And I'm able to talk this to auditors because I also became an accredited auditor. Right. Any other questions, do ask. We do not have very much time left, just about a minute. Yes. Indeed, Adam. So it's one thing is there is a bit of scanning is of course there, but then there are many other checks that you would want to have in place as well. There would also want to be, you would also want to show that code has been reviewed, right? Code has been scanned, code has been reviewed, and that the right checks are in place and no tests got undone, right? So that the system does not become functionally bad or unstable or regress. So it is more than just scanning tools and security OS policies. It's also making sure that what does it take to make sure that the app is correct. You must have that kind of comprehensive tests, and then you're ready to go live. Yeah. So it is scanning, but it is more than scanning. Yes, thank you, Dipin. I look forward to your comments and your queries on the topic. And with this, our time is up. All the best, folks. All the best with your country's salary journey. Have a nice day.